Good morning, beloved ones. You look beautiful. The church looks beautiful. Naturally beautiful. Turn to someone and tell them, you are naturally beautiful. You are naturally beautiful. You are naturally beautiful. Yes. Do you feel beautiful? Yeah, you're naturally beautiful. Just being who we are, just letting our light shine, just being our divine selves, we are naturally beautiful. Wonderful. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I had a lot of time to think this week as I was laying around and recuperating and thinking about our world and thinking about life situations and where we are in time. And at the same time, thinking about the season that we're in. You know, it's the Christmas season, the time in which hopefully hearts and minds are opened. But yet we also experience something else taking place. I thought, well, these are truly the times that try men's souls and their character and their level of humanity, as well as their spirituality. There's so much going on in the world today. But what may actually be overwhelming and even disheartening, at least for some, is what is taking place in our own country at this time, right? What is taking place. And the deep convictions and thoughts and opinions and perspectives regarding race, race relations, racism, police brutality, a feeling of disenfranchisement, violence, and the marginalizing of human life. Not just here, but the marginalizing of human life everywhere. Inequality, injustice, all driving a range of emotions and feelings, from fear to anger, pain, rage, maybe even hopelessness, hatred, self-righteousness, judgmentalness, right and wrong thinking. I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right. Feelings of superiority or inferiority, biases, blindness, and the hardening of hearts. And while I was in the bed recuperating, I was looking at some of the Facebook posts, and I keep saying I don't know why I read those things. But I did. I try not to read them, but I read some of the comments and on Facebook because it leaves me feeling, after I read all the statements and the comments, it leaves me feeling what I just described. You know, disheartened, and it's like, wow, people are really just coming out with all of this expression, and, you know, I'm judging it because sometimes I'm calling it not so good, you know? And, what it does is it brings up my own repressed feelings and unexpressed feelings and my own prejudices and my own frustration at whether or not we will ever get this right. Will we ever? Sometimes I say, my gosh, you know, we've made such progress on this planet, but will we ever get it right on how to live as one people on the planet? Will we ever do that? And then all of a sudden, as I'm feeling, you know, a little bit of discouragement or hopelessness or whatever, then all of a sudden I remember that these are the very times that I have spoken about so often. These are the times that I've been talking about for quite a while now, right? This is the time of great transition. This is it. This is the time of great awakening on the planet. And I've been speaking about this for a few years now. And I'm thinking, wait, this is it. This is the time that we are moving from one way of being into another way, a new way. This is the time, right, that we're moving from one age into another. And an age is about 2,000 years. It's not just, this is the time we were moving into a new age, into a new expression and a way of being on the planet. But sometimes we forget that we are in the dawn of this new age, that we are in the birth pangs, we're having birth pangs of giving birth and rise to a new situation, a new heaven upon the earth. And every system is undergoing transformation. Every system. And disintegration from our political and economic systems. If you don't think they're in a mess, look again. Right? I mean, our whole way of being, from politics and our everything is topsy-turvy. Our institutions are changing. Education is not, they don't even have to go to college. You can sit home and get a 4-year degree, a master's, and, do it all online. They're even doing medicine online. Everything is changing. Our traditions, our social norms, everything is in flux. Everything is in the midst of change. And it's all breaking down. And it must. See, that's what we forget. It must, if there is to be a new heaven upon this new earth. The old has to do what? Pass away. And so sometimes it doesn't always look like that's what's happening. Remember a couple of weeks ago I was talking about platitudes and cliches that still have spiritual meaning and importance and value? But we said them so long that we've forgotten that they really are spiritually truth and powerful. Well, here's a few that I came up with about what's taking place and where we are in the midst of our evolutionary stage of growth and what's happening on the planet and in our country at this time. One of the platitudes or one of the statements is that it's always darkest before dawn. But that is what? That is true. And so the darkness that we see, fear not, it's just the beginning of dawn. It's the coming of a new age. We've heard a statement that says healing isn't always pretty. And that's true. And what is taking place is a healing upon this planet. There's a wounding that has taken place, not only in this country, but there's been a deep wounding. And whenever you have a wounding, there is hopefully the healing process. There's a wounding on the planet because we haven't learned how to live with one another. Things that we've done, countries have done to other countries, and people have done to other people, and tribes have done to other tribes, and clansmen, and family members, and feuds, all these things upon the planet. There's a wounding of the human soul. And the healing must take place. But healing isn't always pretty. When you cut yourself, sometimes it can look quite ugly, right? But the ugliness is just a part of the healing process. That soon, eventually, there'll be a scab and the skin will come together and it will heal. We are in the midst of healing our woundedness. We've heard it said that sometimes divine order, out of divine order, or that divine order brings chaos. And that is true. Have you ever prayed for divine order and all hell breaks loose? That's right. Because what happens when you are praying for divine order, the chaos ensues because there are things that need to fall away, things that need to let go so they start to break down so that they can be released. And it looks chaotic. But it is divine order unfolding and expressing itself. And perhaps we must see our ugliness and our insistence upon separation before we can embrace our beauty and our acceptance of our oneness. See, we are one species, people. We are one species. Doesn't matter how we look. We are one species. Human beings, all. trying to be spiritual beings, trying to evolve into a new species of spiritual beings. But we must come together and recognize our oneness as human beings. And that is what's taking place. Because after a while, we're going to see that trying to annihilate one another is not going to be the solution. It is not going to work. See, this is the time that we as light bearers and light workers must step up to the plate and do the work. Not just for ourselves, which is what we're doing. We always want to work, but not just for ourselves and not just for our country, but for all of humanity. All of humanity. And do you find that thought of working for the upliftment of the soul of humanity a daunting task? That can feel like a daunting task, doesn't it? Well, fear not, because it only takes one light to dispel the darkness. One light to dispel the darkness. And so we should never underestimate the power of our light. Never underestimate the power of your light, of who you are, especially since light is an expression or an emanation of God. It is a quality of God essence, right? And as an emanation of God, of the light of God, then there's something that carries a certain level of power within that. And so we don't have to worry that we're not enough. One candle dispels the darkness. We should never underestimate the work that we are all called to do, even in the realm of spiritual matters. Sometimes I say, well, I don't know, Lord, I'm just one person. But we are each all just one person. Right? So we should never underestimate the work that we're called to do in the realm of spiritual matters at this time, especially in our country's crossroads and in humanity's evolution into its new way of being. We shouldn't underestimate that at all. The work that we can do spiritually. I read a comment on Facebook from a truth student, with someone I knew, and it was a truth student who I respect, and who I know has a good heart, and who I know has a good grasp on spiritual principles. But she wrote something to this effect. Her comment was, if I hear one more comment about prayer, as if now is not the time to be talking about prayer, that now is the time for action, that, we should be moving and doing something. Now is the time. And I thought, but wait a minute. Prayer is an action, albeit an inner one, but a most effective one nonetheless. It is an action. And see, I get that people want some outer expression and demonstration that something is being done about what's taking place. I get that. I want to see that. However, let's be clear. If our actions are not guided by some higher inner moral compass and some spiritual or a spiritual call, then they will not produce a high effect. Now, that's the truth. You got to understand that. Your action has to be guided by something higher to produce a higher effect, right? Because if we act from the same level or from the level of raw emotion without the benefit and the blessing of a divine imperative to move and act, without that blessing, then we will do nothing to impart a lasting change, and we'll simply be adding to the negative energy afoot. So we have to work to do our actions, and our sense of guidance must arise. It must arise from the heart and the soul of God within you. Because from that experience and that alone will we collectively and individually bring about the high calling of humanity's destiny and evolutionary growth. It must come arise from that heart and soul of God, of the divine. So before we act outwardly, and we will take action, but before we do, we should always touch base inwardly. Always. There's a powerful prayer that I've shared with you all before. And I first heard it when I lived in New York City, and I worked with this prayer for a number of years. I used to attend the monthly meditations held at the UN, at the United Nations, and I came across this prayer. And it's called the Great Invocation. And it is a prayer that's been translated into over 81 different languages. Some people call it the prayer for peace or whatever. And they institute whatever name for God that they use in their own language. But I would like us to hear it and affirm it now. I don't know, do they have it on the screen? So I don't know if you all can read that. Let me read it. But it says, from the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into human minds. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide all little human wills, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Can you all read that? Then let's affirm this together. I want to hear us speak this truth together. Let's affirm it together. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into human minds. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide all little human wills, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Now, I want you to just close your eyes, because I want to read this, and I want you to take this and feel the vibration of the words. Because this is what we are going to send out. We are light workers and light bearers. Let's do our part. So just open your heart and then hear these words and affirm that divine yes within in your own heart. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into human minds. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide all little human wills, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out. And may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. And just let your heart feel a divine yes. And so it is. Amen. And so what I wanted to do, to have ready for you, but of course I didn't know I was going to be writing this message this morning, this part of the message, because I had planned to do a Christmas message, but I'm going to see if I can sneak that in. But what I want to do is to have this printed on a little card for each of us. And I'm going to hand it out probably, if I can, next week or so. And I'm going to ask that we hold this prayer. We affirm it. For 40 days and for 40 nights. 40 is a spiritual number. It means the time of spiritual completion. So we will hold it in consciousness. We can do our part. We can pray for our world. We can speak the truth that we know. We can call forth God's presence to be made manifest in every heart, in every mind, in every spirit, every soul, every body, every creature, every being upon this planet. That is why we are here. That is who we are. So hopefully you will join me in that process as we pray, and speak the truth for each other. So I'll have that ready for you for next week. And don't take it if you're not going to do the work. Really, we need all of us to step into who we are and to hold the prayer. You can pray it maybe in the morning or in the evening, or 3 times a day, however long, but at least once a day for 40 days, we need to speak this into being. We'll be joining many, many people around the planet who hold this prayer in their consciousness. So the other thing I wanted to say, the other point I wanted to make about prayer, this whole concept that somehow when we're just praying, we're just sitting around, not doing much. But prayer does not mean that this is all that we're going to do. It simply means that it is our first course of action. Right? It's our first course of action. Because you've also heard me say that when you pray, you should do what? Move your feet. Yeah. So I'm not talking, we're not talking about sitting around singing Kumbaya. Well, even though, we're talking about taking action, moving our feet. Even the Bible says that there is a season, a time, and a purpose for everything. There's a time to move. There's a time to be still. There's a time to speak. Ecclesiastes, right? You know that one, right? I'll read it really quickly. It's Ecclesiastes 3. There's a time for everything, a season for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up. There's a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak up, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. There's a season, a time, and a purpose for everything. This is a powerful scripture. However, what I also say is that you have to know what time you're in, and you got to know the season. You have to know when it's time to speak. Sometimes it's time to speak, and sometimes it's time to be silent. Sometimes it's time to plant, and sometimes it's time to harvest. However, if you are not clear about your time and your purpose, you're going to be in a heap of trouble. If you are trying to pluck up when you should be planting, it's not going to work, right? If you don't understand when and how to do something and the timing of it, timing is everything, you can be in trouble. So is it time for me to speak up? Is it time for me to be silent? And when I'm silent, sometimes it's the reverse. There's a time for me to perhaps disagree, and there's a time for me to come into harmony. There's a time for me to, even it says here, to have war, and there's a time to have peace. But how it's done and when it's done is oh so crucial. It is important that your feet and your guidance and your timing move in a direction and from a high consciousness and from the Spirit of God. Because what we want is divine guidance. We want to know when. Is it time? We want to know what. What am I to do? We want to know how. How am I to do this? And to be clear, we need some divine guidance. We're looking for a divine path. We're looking for a direction, maybe even a guiding light. Or maybe since it's Christmas, we're looking for a Christmas star, right? Something to guide us. This is after all the Christmas season. So I thought maybe we'd take a moment to look how this whole desire and need for guidance, divine guidance, also played a part in the Christmas story around the birth of Jesus, the Christ. And I'm reading from Matthew 2, verses 1 through 12. And it says, Jesus was born in the town of Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We have seen his star as it arose, and we have come to worship him." Herod was deeply disturbed by their question, as was all of Jerusalem. He called the meeting of the leading priests and teachers of religious law. "Where did the prophets say the Messiah would be born?" he asked them. "In Bethlehem," they said, "for this is what the prophet wrote. O Bethlehem of Judah, you are not just a lowly village in Judah, for a ruler will come from you, who will be the shepherd for my people Israel." Then Herod sent a private message to the wise men, asking them to come see him. At this meeting, he learned the exact time when they first saw the star. Then he told them, "Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. And when you find him, come back and tell me so I can go and worship him too." After this interview, the wise men went their way, and once again the star appeared to them, guiding them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house where the child and his mother Mary were, and they fell down before him and worshiped him. They opened their treasure chest and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But when it was time to leave, they went home another way, because God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. And then the scripture goes on to tell how God warns Joseph to take the child and Mary and to move into Egypt because Herod was really trying to destroy the child. So I want to look at this quickly metaphysically for a moment and see how it applies to our lives today. So King Herod, any kind of king represents a ruling element, right? And so King Herod represents the ruling aspect of our human mind, our human consciousness that is not in touch with our spiritual capacity. It's not in touch with that divine nature within ourselves. It could symbolize the egoic consciousness, the ego. The wise men represent that innate sense of wisdom that lies within the soul, within everyone. There is an innate level of wisdom. And the East, metaphysically and spiritually, represents the within. So wise men from the East or Eastern lands represents wisdom that comes from within. It symbolizes, or they could be said to symbolize, our intuition. Now, intuition, as we know it, is different than as maybe how the world may define it as a hunch or, a good guess. It's something different, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But these wise men, they saw the star, right, of the Christ child, of that Christ light, and they followed it. And it led them to, of course, the newborn babe. And they said that they saw his star as it arose, and they began to follow it. See, intuition and divine guidance and true light always arises from within. It comes from within. And the more we are able to go within, to that east, the more we go within, the more light will arise in our consciousness to guide our actions and to guide our steps and to guide our choices. When we have inner guidance from on high, friends, it's totally different. When you have that inner guidance from on high, then you act. Then you follow the guidance, and then you'll be led in right and perfect ways. So we need then to be able to recognize inner guidance when it comes. See, we need to be able to recognize our divine intuition. See, divine intuition is knowing. It is direct knowing, and this knowing is clear and simple and direct. There's no guessing. It's not a hunch. It is a divine and direct knowing. It's when you know that you know that you know, even when you don't know how you know. But you know. See, it comes. It arises in your consciousness. And so what we have to understand, there's a difference between knowing and thinking. If you think you know, you don't know. There's a difference between thinking is what you do when you are simply moving ideas around in your head, trying to come up with the right answer, trying to come up with the right way, trying to figure it all out. And when you are busy trying to figure it all out, you are thinking way too hard. Because when you are in touch with your intuition, you don't have to think about it, right? When your intuition is working, that is when you dwell in the east, within, a knowing will simply arise. A light, said they knew it because the star just arose and they followed it, right? A knowing will arise. A light will arise in your consciousness and you begin to simply be aware. You have awareness, not by thinking it all through, but by the grace of divine knowing. Now, I'm not poo-pooing the intellect because we need the intellect, but we need to understand that there is someone, unless that intellect has been spiritualized, the intellect can also lead you astray. But divine knowing, intuition is always clear because it comes direct from God, right? So we need to practice and understand how do we, access this intuition? How do we develop it? And I'm not talking again about, turning around 3 times and stop handing on 1 foot or whatever, then your intuition goes. Intuition is what you have normally. But you access it. This is why I'm constantly harping on practicing some concrete time in meditation. I harp on it because, friends, this is the portal. When this is the meditation is you're going within to the east, because those in the east literally, those Eastern religions literally have discovered this ancient times. They understand the power of meditation and what it does and how it opens us up to the divine. We in the West are just kind of coming on board, okay? But I'm telling you, this is why I harp on it. It's the portal. It is the portal to being enlightened, to coming into full light, to allowing yourself to present yourself open and receptive to the presence of the divine, so that that light that is the light of God, that lights every man, woman, and child that's already in you, can begin to arise in you and offer you clear guidance, direction, wisdom, understanding, divine knowledge, spiritual illumination, all the things that we need to be an enlightened being on this earth, to have light, to recognize that the light of God is us. And in this recognition, we begin to see that there's no separation. When you are enlightened, you can't say me and my brother. You can just simply say me. My brother, me. God, me. There's no separation. It's only a sense of oneness. And when you're enlightened, you begin to live, move, and have your being in this consciousness. You begin to experience God realization, or the reality that God is. All there is. You, me, I, the plants, the tree, it's all the divine emanation of God. That is the one true reality. And this is when heaven comes to earth. And we're in that process right now. Everything and everyone on this planet is being asked to change. And, or should I say, is caught up in the shift that is already happening. And make no mistake, change is underway. And change often brings fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear that I might not get my good. Fear that somebody else might have more control over me. Fear, 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 fear. That's okay. There are many people who are leading from this consciousness of the King Herod. See, King Herod was afraid. King Herod was ruling, but he's ruling the human consciousness. And when your human consciousness is in charge, there will be fear. When the ego is in charge, it comes from the attack, defend mode. I must preserve myself. What, a Christ child being born? A ruler? Another ruler? No, 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 no. Let me kill it. That's what we do. Oh, somebody else might have some power? Oh, let me annihilate it. Let me destroy it. Attack, defend. That's the Herod in us. And it is always trying to seek to destroy the beauty in us, the Christ in us, the divine in us, because it fears that it will no longer be in charge. It will no longer be in charge. But we must be like the wise men and rely solely upon this wisdom in order to protect our Christ nature and our Christ self. You've got to protect this pure essence of who you are. Watch what you let into your consciousness. Watch who you associate with. Watch what vibrations you allow. Protect who you are as a spiritual being, because you have work to do. You've got to know when Herod's in charge or whether it's the Christ in charge. But this is the thing. We're never without the light that we need. We're never without the guidance that we need to make wise decisions and clear choices. But no matter how dark the days may get, and days may get a little darker, friends. I don't think we've seen anything yet, okay? But no matter how bleak or how dark, when you fall into that space, remember, just like when I read those things and I get so, depressed, then I have to wait. Let me put that aside. I know who I am. I'm a light bearer. I know what my job is. Not to get down by what I'm reading, not to be destroyed by what I'm feeling, not to be discouraged by what I'm seeing out here in the world, but to take my rightful place as a son or daughter of God, as the Most High being in this expression, and put forth light. There is a divine plan at work always, and we are a part of it. Your task is to remember that, to be the voice of wisdom, to be a light bearer, to call forth truth and right action that is undergirded by the movement of spirit. I'm going to move when the Spirit says move. I'm going to sing when the Spirit says sing. I'm going to pray when the Spirit says pray, and obey the Spirit of the Lord. When we do that, friends, everything will happen in love and peace and righteousness, because any action that arises from the fount of God within us cannot fail. It will be divinely right action. So be the light of the world and for the world. I am the light of the world and for the world. Let me hear you affirm that. I am the light of the world and for the world. Let it be so. Namaste. Namaste. Namaste.